Welcome back to our channel.
I am Lisa.
And I am Eric. If you want to improve your English, this podcast is perfect for you.
So, let's get started and make English learning easy. What are the words today, Eric?
The first word today is diligent. Then we will continue with humble and to be articulate. Then hit the road. And the final one is bitten by the bug.
Let's start with the first word.
The first word is diligent.
Diligent.
Diligent. Diligent is an adjective that describes someone who works hard and is very careful about doing things well. It means to be hardworking and persistent. For example, Sarah is a diligent student who always completes her homework on time. It means that Sarah is a hardworking student who is careful to finish her homework when it's due.
Here's my example. The diligent gardener spent hours weeding and watering his plants every day. It means that the gardener worked hard and carefully took care of his plants every day, spending a lot of time on it.
We can also use the adverb form diligently to describe how someone does something. For example, he worked diligently on his project.
Good point, Eric. Now, let's listen to a short dialogue using our word diligent.
Emma, I've noticed you've been very diligent in your studies lately.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. I've been trying my best to improve my grades.
Well, your diligent work is paying off. Your test scores have improved a lot.
That's great to hear. I'll continue to be diligent and work hard.
That's the spirit, Emma. Being diligent is a valuable skill that will help you in all areas of life.
That was a great dialogue. The teacher and Emma used our word diligent several times to talk about Emma's hard work.
Yes, they did. Eric, do you think you're a diligent person?
Well, I try to be diligent, especially when I'm working on important projects. How about you, Lisa?
I think I'm diligent in some things, like keeping my house clean, but maybe not so diligent in others, like exercise.
That's interesting. Do you think it's possible to be diligent in everything we do?
That's a good question. I think it would be very hard to be diligent in everything. We need to choose what's most important.
I agree.
When I was learning Spanish, I was very diligent. I studied every day, and it really helped me improve quickly.
That's a great example. Being diligent is really important when learning a new skill. I think some people might be naturally more diligent, but I believe everyone can learn to be more diligent if they try.
I hope our listeners will become more diligent in their English studies. After listening to our podcast,
I hope so. It will be really useful for them.
I agree, Eric. Well, that's all we have time for with our word diligent. Let's move on to our next word.
The next word is humble.
Humble.
Humble. Humble is an adjective that describes someone who is not proud or does not think they are better than others.
That's right, Eric. Let's give some example sentences to help our listeners understand better.
Here's my example. Even though he's a famous actor, Tom is very humble and treats everyone with respect. It means that Tom doesn't act like he's more important than others, even though he's well known.
Great example. Here's mine. Sarah was humble about her achievements and didn't like to brag. It means that Sarah didn't talk a lot about her successes or try to make herself look better than others.
Now, let's talk about how to use this word. Humble is usually used before a noun, like a humble person or a humble opinion. And sometimes we use the phrase to be humble about something. For example, he was humble about his success.
Now, let's listen to a short dialogue using the word humble.
Hey, John, did you hear about Mark's promotion?
Yes, I did. He's now the manager of the whole department.
That's amazing. But you know what I like most about Mark?
What's that?
He's so humble. Even with this big promotion, he still treats everyone the same.
I agree. It's nice to see someone be humble about their success.
Definitely. Being humble can make people like you more.
That was a great dialogue, Lisa. I like how it showed the word humble in action.
Me too, Eric. What do you think about being humble?
I think it's a good quality to have. When people are humble, others often like them more.
I agree. I try to be humble too. It's not always easy, but I think it's important. Do you know anyone who is very humble?
Yes, my grandmother is very humble. She has done many great things in her life, but she never talks about them unless someone asks.
That's a great example of being humble. Do you think it's good to be too humble?
That's a good question. I think sometimes people can be too humble and not give themselves enough credit, but it's also important to recognize your own achievements. It's all about finding a balance.
Well said, Eric. I agree with you. I think the balance is very important. Okay, I hope our listeners have learned a lot about the word humble today.
I hope so too, Lisa. Remember, listeners, being humble doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less often.
That's a great way to put it, Eric. Shall we move on to the next word?
Let's do that. The next word is articulate.
Articulate.
Great. So, what does articulate mean? Articulate can be used as an adjective or a verb, but today we'll explain its adjective form. Okay, to be articulate is an adjective that means being able to express your thoughts and ideas clearly and effectively. It can also describe someone who speaks clearly and correctly. For example, she's a very articulate speaker and her presentation was excellent. It means that she's able to express her ideas clearly and effectively, and that's why her presentation was so good.
Great example. Now, it's my turn. Here's another example sentence. He's not very articulate when he's nervous, but he's working on it. It means that when he's nervous, he has trouble expressing his thoughts and ideas clearly, but he's trying to improve.
That's a good example, Lisa, and I think it's worth noting that articulate is sometimes used with the preposition about. For example, she's very articulate about her opinions.
That's a good point, Eric. Now, let's move on to a sample dialogue that uses the word articulate.
Alex, I was impressed with your presentation today. You're very articulate about your research.
Thank you, Professor Johnson. I've been working on being more articulate in expressing my ideas.
It shows you're able to explain complex concepts in an articulate and easy-to-understand way.
I'm glad to hear that. I've been trying to improve my public speaking skills.
Great dialogue. Lisa, what do you think is the most important thing about being articulate?
That's a good question. I think it's being able to express your thoughts and ideas clearly so that others can understand you.
Absolutely, and I think it's also important to be confident when speaking. When you're confident, you're more likely to be articulate.
That's true. And what about in a work setting? How important is it to be articulate in a job interview, for example?
Oh, it's crucial. If you can't express your ideas clearly, you're not going to make a good impression.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you think of a time when you had trouble articulating your thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, actually, I was in a meeting once, and I was trying to explain a complex idea, but I just couldn't get the words out. It was frustrating.
I'm sure it was, but I'm sure you've improved since then.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay, Eric, what is the next word?
The next word is hit the road.
Hit the road.
Hit the road.
Hit the road means to start a journey or leave a place. It's an informal way to say, you're beginning to travel.
Yes, and it's an idiom used in casual conversation. Let's look at some example sentences.
I'll go first. Here is the first example sentence. We need to hit the road early to avoid traffic. It means that we should leave early in the morning so we don't get stuck in traffic.
Here's my example. After saying goodbye, they hit the road for their trip. It means that after they said goodbye, they started their journey or trip.
Now let's move on to a short dialogue that includes this phrase.
Are you ready to hit the road, Tina?
Yes, I packed everything last night. We can hit the road before it gets too hot.
Good idea. The earlier we leave, the better.
Agreed. I'm excited for our adventure.
Eric, do you like to hit the road for trips?
Yes, I love road trips. It's exciting to see new places. What about you, Lisa?
I enjoy them too. It's nice to explore and have a change of scenery. Do you have any tips for hitting the road?
I always make sure the car is ready and pack some snacks. How about you?
I like to plan the route and make a playlist for the drive. It makes the trip more enjoyable.
Great tips. So we've learned that hit the road means to start traveling. It's a fun way to talk about leaving for a trip.
Yes. And remember, it's a casual phrase you can use with friends and family. Well, now it is time to explain the last word of today. What is the last word, Eric?
The last word is bitten by the bug.
Bitten by the bug.
Bitten by the bug.
Bitten by the bug. That's an interesting phrase. It's not a literal bug, right?
No, it's not. Bitten by the bug is an idiomatic expression that means that someone has become very interested or enthusiastic about something, often suddenly, usually a hobby or an activity.
So it's like when you suddenly become really interested in playing a musical instrument, for example.
Exactly. Here's an example sentence. After trying rock climbing once, I was bitten by the bug, and now I go climbing every weekend. It means that after trying rock climbing for the first time, I became very interested in it. Now, I do it every weekend, and I can't get enough of it.
Does it mean that after trying rock climbing for the first time, I became very interested in it? Now, I do it every weekend, and I can't get enough of it?
That's right. And here's another example. Eric was bitten by the travel bug after his first trip abroad.
This means that after Eric's first trip abroad, he became very interested in traveling and wanted to do more of it?
Yes, that's correct. Now, let's have a sample dialogue using this phrase.
Hey, I heard you started playing the guitar. What made you decide to do that?
Well, I went to a concert last week, and the guitarist was amazing. I was bitten by the bug and decided to give it a try.
That's great. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
In this dialogue, Jack became very interested in playing the guitar after watching a concert and decided to start playing it.
And he used the idiom bitten by the bug to explain that he became very interested and enthusiastic about playing guitar suddenly.
That's right. Lisa, have you ever been bitten by the bug for anything?
Yes, I have. I was bitten by the cooking bug after watching a cooking show on TV. I started trying out new recipes and really enjoyed it. What about you, Eric? Have you ever been bitten by the bug for anything?
Yes, I have. After reading a really good book, I was bitten by the reading bug. I started reading more and more books and couldn't stop.
That's awesome. Reading is a great hobby, and it's interesting how we can suddenly become very interested in something, just like being bitten by a bug.
Yes, it is. And that's what the idiom bitten by the bug means in English. It's a fun and interesting way to express our sudden interest in something.
Definitely. All right, so in summary, bitten by the bug is an idiomatic expression that means you've become very interested in or passionate about a particular activity or subject.
Exactly. It's a fun and casual way to express that idea. I enjoyed our discussion about it.
Me too. Okay, I think we have reached the end of today's episode, Eric.
Yes, Lisa.
I am Lisa.
And I am Eric. If you improve your English, this podcast is perfect for you.
So let's get started and make English learning easy. What are the words today, Eric?
The first word today is arrogant. Then we will continue with crucial and to confront. Then mark my words. And the final one is last but not least.
Let's start with the first word.
The first word is arrogant.
Arrogant.
Arrogant. Okay, let's explain what arrogant means. Arrogant is an adjective that describes someone who thinks they are better or more important than other people. It means being too proud of yourself and looking down on other people. For example, the arrogant manager never listened to his employees' ideas.
It means that the manager thought he was always right and didn't value the opinions of the people working for him because he believed he was better than them.
Exactly. Now, Lisa, can you give us another example?
Sure. Here's my example. Sarah's arrogant behavior made it difficult for her to make friends at her new school.
Great one. It means that Sarah acted like she was better than others, which made people not want to be friends with her at her new school.
Good point, Eric. Now, let's listen to a short dialogue using our word arrogant.
Hey, Anna. Did you meet the new student in our class?
Yes, I did. To be honest, I think he's a bit arrogant. He keeps talking about how smart he is and how his old school was much better than ours.
I see. That does sound arrogant. Maybe he's just nervous about being the new kid?
Maybe, but being arrogant isn't a good way to make friends.
You're right. Let's try to be friendly anyway.
That was a great dialogue. Anna and Tom used the word arrogant several times to talk about the new student's behavior.
Yes, they did. Eric, have you ever met someone who was arrogant?
Yes, I have. I once had a classmate who was very arrogant about his grades and always bragged about them.
That must have been annoying. How did you deal with it?
I tried to be kind to him, but I also didn't let his arrogant behavior bother me.
That sounds difficult. Eric, do you think it is possible to be confident without being arrogant?
I think it is. Confident people can still be kind and respectful to others. Arrogant people often forget to be kind.
That's a great way to look at it. I agree with you. Well, that's all we have time for with our word arrogant. Let's move on to our next word.
The next word is crucial.
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 Okay, let's explain what crucial means. Crucial is an adjective. It means that something is essential or critical for success or to make something happen. It is stronger than important.
For example, getting enough sleep is crucial for good health. This means that sleeping enough is very important and necessary for health.
Good example. This is mine. Communication is crucial in any relationship. It means that being able to talk and listen to each other is very important and necessary for a good relationship.
Now, let's talk about how to use this word. Crucial is an adjective, so we use it to describe nouns. We often say something is crucial or plays a crucial role.
Good point, Eric. Now, let's listen to a short dialogue using our word crucial.
Okay, class, let's talk about our group project. What do you think is crucial for its success?
I think good teamwork is crucial, Ms. Johnson.
Excellent point. Teamwork is indeed crucial. What else?
Time management is also crucial. We need to finish on time.
You're absolutely right. Both teamwork and time management play crucial roles in completing a successful group project.
That was a great dialogue.
Yes, it is. I liked it.
Now, Eric, let's talk about what is crucial for learning English. What do you think?
That's a great topic. I think it's crucial to study every day. Even if you only study for a short time each day, it helps to keep your mind active and improves your skills.
I completely agree. Daily practice is really important. I also think it's crucial to listen to English as much as possible. Listening helps you understand how the language sounds and improves your pronunciation.
Absolutely. Listening is key. It is also crucial to read frequently about the topics you enjoy. It increases your vocabulary.
That's a great point, Eric. So, to our listeners, remember that practicing daily, listening to English, and reading about the topic you are interested in are all crucial to learning English.
Those are great points, Lisa. Well, that's all we have time for with our word, crucial. Let's move on to our next word. The next word is to confront.
To confront.
To confront. To confront means to face someone or something, especially when it's difficult. For example, you might confront a friend if they've hurt your feelings, or you might confront a problem that you've been avoiding.
Yes, exactly. It usually means you are dealing with a situation directly, even if it's uncomfortable or hard. Now, let's give some examples to help explain. I'll start with the first one.
Sure, go ahead.
Here's the first example. Sarah decided to confront her fear of speaking in public. It means that Sarah had to face her fear of talking in front of many people, but now she has made a decision to deal with it.
That's a good example, Lisa. Now, here's the second example. John decided to confront his boss about his work schedule. It means that John chose to talk to his boss about his work hours. He might have been unhappy or felt it was unfair, so he decided to address the issue directly.
Great explanation, Eric. It's important to note that to confront is often followed by the thing or person. For example, confront his boss or confront the problem. Now, let's use the word in a short dialogue so our listeners can hear how it's used in conversation.
Ben, I think you need to confront Mr. Smith about how he talks to you. It's not fair.
You're right, Amy. I've been avoiding it, but I need to confront the problem and tell him how I feel.
In this dialogue, Amy is telling Ben that he should talk to Mr. Smith directly about the way he's being treated. Ben agrees that he needs to do this.
Yes, and Ben is admitting that he has been avoiding the situation, but now feels he must deal with it. That's what confront means in this context.
Is it always a good idea to confront someone when there's a problem? What do you think?
That's a good question, Lisa. I think it depends on the situation. Sometimes confronting someone can solve the problem because it also might bring it out into the open. But other times, it might be better to think about how to approach it carefully.
I agree. It's crucial to think about how you confront someone. It's important to be calm and respectful so the conversation doesn't turn into an argument.
Exactly. And sometimes it helps to plan what you're going to say before you confront someone. That way, you can stay focused on the issue without getting too emotional.
That's a great tip, Eric. So, to our listeners, remember that to confront means to face a challenge or a person directly. But always think carefully about how you do it.
Yes, confronting a problem or a person can be important, but doing it in a thoughtful way can make a big difference.
I agree. Okay, Eric, let's move on to the next word.
The next word is mark my words.
Mark my words.
Mark my words.
Mark my words is an idiom we use when we want someone to pay attention to what we're saying because it's important and usually what we say will happen in the future.
Exactly. When you say, mark my words, when you tell someone to remember something, it's because you believe it will happen, like saying, I'm sure of this. For example, mark my words, that relationship won't last. It means that the speaker is sure that the relationship will end soon.
That's a good example, Eric. Now, here's the second example. Mark my words, he will be late to the meeting. It means that the speaker is quite sure that the person will be late to the meeting and wants the listener to remember this prediction.
Great explanation, Lisa. One thing to note is that this phrase is always used to make a prediction. It's like telling someone to pay attention because you know what's going to happen.
Yes. Now, let's use the phrase in a short dialogue so our listeners can hear how it's used in conversation.
Emily, mark my words, this movie is going to win an award.
Really? You think so?
Yes. Mark my words. The story is so good, and the acting is amazing. It's going to win something for sure.
In this dialogue, Jake is very confident that the movie will win an award because he believes it will come true. Eric, do you think it's common to use mark my words in everyday conversation?
It's not something people say all the time, but you might hear it when someone feels strongly about something they believe will happen. It's a way to say, I'm really sure about this.
That's true. Have you ever used mark my words with someone?
I have. I once told my friend, mark my words, you're going to love that new restaurant. And guess what? They did.
That's a good example. It shows how mark my words can be used in different situations, not just serious ones, but even when you're sure about something like a restaurant or a movie.
Absolutely. It's a useful phrase to learn, especially when you want to make a strong point about something you're sure of.
So true. I hope our listeners now feel more comfortable using mark my words in their conversations. Okay, what is the last word of today?
The last word is last but not least.
Last but not least.
Last but not least.
Nice choice. Last but not least is an idiom we use when we want to introduce the final thing in a list and show that it's still very important, even though it's the last one.
Exactly. When you say last but not least, you're telling the listener that the last item is as important as the others. For example, I'd like to thank my parents, my teachers, and last but not least, my friends. It means that the speaker is grateful to all the people mentioned, and even though his friends are mentioned last, they are just as important as the others.
That's a good example, Eric. Now, here's the second example. We invited many guests to our party, my cousins, my coworkers, and last but not least, my best friend. It means that the speaker wants to highlight his best friend, making sure everyone knows that. Although his friend was mentioned last, they are very important.
Great explanation, Lisa. This phrase is often used when giving speeches, making presentations, or writing lists. It's a polite way to make sure the final item is given special attention.
Now, let's use the phrase in a short dialogue so our listeners can hear how it's used in conversation.
We have a great team. First, there's Sarah, who is amazing at organizing events.
Yes, and we also have Mark, who is fantastic with numbers.
And last but not least, we have Jane, who always brings creative ideas to the table.
Exactly. Jane's ideas are always so fresh and interesting. Our team wouldn't be the same without her.
In this dialogue, Alice ensures that Jane is recognized as important, even though she is mentioned last in the list.
Yes, and Ben agrees, pointing out that Jane deserves attention even though she is mentioned last.
Eric, do you think this phrase is only used in formal situations?
Not at all. While it's common in formal settings like speeches or presentations, you can also use it in everyday conversations as well. Anytime you want to list things or people and make sure the last one isn't overlooked, you can use last but not least.
That's true. I've even used it when I'm talking about my favorite things, like when I'm listing my favorite movies or books. It helps me make sure the last one doesn't seem less important.
That's a great point, Lisa. Okay, I think we have reached the end of today's episode.
We hope you learned something new today.
Don't forget to subscribe and like our videos. See you next time.
Bye bye.